embracing the suck each time they step outdoors. Welcome to the Chronicles of the Kamikaze Duck Tribe.
All right, so we've come up to an end to the migratory and the upland bird seasons, but Kansas is one of those great places that there's always something to hunt. Now, obviously, squirrel's still, I think, going on here for a little while, and rabbit, but again, who really wants to do that when there's other opportunities? So as you can imagine, it's time to start gearing up for actually one of the ones I haven't done yet, which is spring turkey.
Right.
Now, this is something I know that you've had several experiences doing, so I'm probably going to rely on a lot of your wisdom. I've read the articles, but you and I both know that what we read on the internet versus what actually happens when we get out in the field is a completely different deal. So, spring turkey is a really good opportunity to get, I guess it's one of the largest game birds we have here in Kansas, right?
Oh yeah, and they're exceptionally large whenever you're dragging one out of there.
Oh God, I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, I think the average that I read was somewhere between 20 to 25 pounds, with the state record being over 32 pounds.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
Oh God, I can't imagine. Now, one thing I've always wondered, since I haven't had a chance to try it, since you and I have been hunting together, we haven't done it. Does it taste like? I assume it tastes nothing like the turkey you get at the store, right?
Yeah, nothing like that. The store-bought turkeys are way superior, in my opinion.
So why hunt turkey then?
Well, it's fun.
Okay,
it's fun.
Okay,
yeah.
I just wanted to make sure, because a lot of times when we're talking on here, we talk about how we think venison is superior to a lot of the stuff that you can get in the store.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. A prime cut of filet or tenderloin from a cow, I'm not going to turn my nose up, but
sure,
it still doesn't hold a candle to a backstrap, in my opinion.
Right.
But I've often wondered that about turkeys.
And they're good. It's not that they're not good, but like the breast meat especially is not nearly as plentiful as in a domestic bird.
Right.
And they're just a little tougher, but they're still good. Still good to eat.
That's nothing you want to say, put in the freezer and say for Thanksgiving. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Well, actually, you could, but I'd want a regular one also.
Yeah, because you're not going to feed
a domestic one. Because there's something to be said. I like having wild game, especially, just to give thanks and to remember, the hunts that you've been on.
That is absolutely a good deal. And we usually do a couple turkeys anyway, so
sure.
I guess you could do it a different way. And
right.
What's more American than deep fat frying it, right?
Yeah, and that is my least favorite way to have a wild turkey.
I think any turkey. I don't like fried turkey either. It makes a mess, and it's just not worth it. If we're going to fry something, let's batter up some chicken and be done with it, right?
Yeah, and that is actually one of the ways that I do like, just to cut them up and make like chicken fingers out of your turkey.
Turkey fingers?
Mm-hmm. They work. The wild ones are really good that way.
Well, hopefully we'll get an opportunity to try one of those. I think that would be a lot of fun. So, spring turkey starts in April, if I remember correctly, so it's just around the corner. If you're a person that's thinking about possibly going into turkey hunting, what's some of the things you think would be a good idea to make sure that you have or you purchase before the season starts?
To me, the most important thing, other than your firearm, obviously, would be some really good bug spray.
Really?
Oh, man. Yeah, it's hot out, warm, typically. Mm-hmm. And, you're going to be trudging through a lot of forest or wooded areas, typically. So, going to be lots of mosquitoes, lots of ticks, and that kind of thing.
Is that, I remember you telling me a horror story about ticks once. Was it during a turkey hunt?
It was. One of the first times that I took my son out, in fact, he was about 12, I think. And we were over in far eastern Kansas, hunting some private ground over there. And we were actually stalking there was probably 15 or 20 birds, and we were trying to get them to come to a call. So we set up on this ridge line, and we're calling them, and they were kind of interested in coming, but they had held up a little bit, probably 100 yards out, and I kind of could see movement, all over the place, but I was concentrating on the birds and not so much everything else until felt like my skin was just crawling.
I already know.
I kind of looked, and I could, like I said, it looked like the ground was moving. It was like your vision was blurry. You couldn't
like
really
a mirage,
see.
just kind of shimmering. Yeah.
And turns out that I could see quite well. And what I was seeing were these ticks that were just covering everything, and they were tiny, tiny little ticks about the size of a pinhead, and they were all over us. I mean, all over us. And so I kind of lost interest in the birds at that point in time. We got up.
I can imagine so.
And went somewhere else.
Well, the hard part for that, especially for me, would be because you would feel like you're itching the rest of the day, and you would, in your mind, you would think that it's just more of those ticks that are all over you.
Oh yeah, yeah, and even when you shoot one, a lot of those birds have lice on them, the poultry lice.
Oh, nice.
So another thing I would strongly encourage is to take a trash bag with you, so that if you do bag one, you can put them in the plastic garbage bag, seal that up, and then you're not taking all that stuff home with you, or wearing it anyway.
That sounds terrifying. Well, being poultry lice, they're not gonna attach themselves to you, right?
No, no.
But still.
Yeah, you don't want them on you.
That's a good way to not make your wife happy. Look, babe, look what I've got. It's a wild turkey. As the bag starts crawling away,
and all you have to do is clean them, honey. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That would work well.
I can see this going south really, really quickly. So you'd mentioned calling. I did a little quick research, and I actually bought a slate call. I've never really used it that much, but I saw that there's at least 3 kinds of calls. Is there one you prefer, or?
I like the box calls myself because it's just easier for me to use. I've also used the diaphragm calls, when they're close and you're trying to get a shot on one. I like to hunt them with a shotgun. Is my favorite method. Mm-hmm. So you need them to kind of stop and to stick their head out, and you can hit that diaphragm call just real soft. And a lot of times they'll freeze up and look right at you, and then you can shoot them.
So the diaphragm's the one that's in your mouth, right?
Correct.
And the box, if I remember correctly, just like the name sounds, it's got like a little handle, almost looks like a paint stir stick with a little box and some kind of friction material, and you can move it.
Right. And for me, the box call is by far the best call to make a gobble with, because you invert that box upside down and just shake it. Mm-hmm. And you can get a really good gobble out of that call.
If I remember correctly, I know this is not related to turkey, but it brings back a funny memory. Didn't you have some? It was like a shake call of some sort, but I think it was for ducks. But it looked like some kind of jacked up sex toy.
Yes. Yeah, we had one of those. I don't remember where I got it.
It was like this bellows type thing with a weight on the end of it that you'd sit here and just kind of flop around, and the actual sounder part of the call was in your hand, and you were holding it. It looked like you were. You guys get the picture. But I remember you chasing the kids around with that when they were small.
Like a feed call.
Yeah, it was a feed call. Yeah, for ducks, a mallard one. I remember it now. I haven't seen that thing in a while.
No, I don't know whatever happened to it. I imagine my wife threw it out, or my son, because I used to make him use it. So.
Yeah, you don't want to be caught on camera using the thing. Let's just leave it that way. So we've got the box call. The slate call, the one I've got, I guess I can actually describe it since I own it. You've got looks kind of like a wooden dowel with a rounded end and a piece of slate on like a sounder that's got holes in the back so that the sound can, travel through, and you make different shapes with it, like you're holding it like a pen, to make the yelps, make the gobbles, make the clucks and the purrs and the rest of the sounds that I can't make yet.
Right.
Thank God we've got a couple months or a month and a half to practice. But I gave it to one of the guys at work that I work with that's very good with calling turkeys, and it was quite impressive the difference it sounded in experienced sounds, because to me it just sounded like I was choking a turkey to death with my bare hands, and he was actually able to not only make it sound like a turkey, but it was extremely loud, a lot louder than I thought would ever happen.
Right. Yeah, and they're very good if you get good at using them. I've never been much of a turkey hunter. It was more, I'd shoot them typically in the fall, and it would be, not what I was actually after, but if a turkey happened to walk under my tree stand while I was hunting deer, I could harvest one that way.
Well, I've got a question. How would you harvest it then? Were you harvesting with a bow or?
Yes, with a bow.
Okay, and that was one of the things. I know you said the shotgun was your preferred method, but if you're using a bow, is there anything different you have to do?
Well, depending on the head that or the tip, the broadhead that you're using. Some broadheads, like one called the guillotine, and for you guys that haven't heard of that, that's kind of something funny to look up on YouTube.
Is that the one that cuts the head off?
Yes.
Oh, now I see why they call it guillotine.
Yeah.
It looks like a big ass propeller of razor blades.
Right. And those are designed for, the neck or head shot, where with a traditional broadhead, you just shoot them in the body.
That's interesting. I didn't think you shot them in the body, but I guess that would make sense. I thought you always had to go for a headshot, and that's why they made the guillotine. But
right.
I've seen some videos this morning. I was doing some research on this, and there was some guy that was hunting with a bow, a compound bow, at 6 yards, no blind. And it was really interesting to see. And he had to have a lot of patience. And if I'm correct, I read that turkeys have excellent eyesight.
Yes.
So there's no mistakes. It's worse than deer. With deer, it's smell you've got to worry about. With turkeys, I imagine they react to sound too, but is it mainly their eyes you're avoiding?
Yeah, they can see you really, really good. If you flinch, blink, do anything at the wrong time, they'll bust you. The good thing is there's a whole bunch of different levels of turkeys. So like a mature tom, you're not going to be able to make a mistake and still harvest that animal. With the Jake, the first time, and I think I've talked to you about it, but the first time I took my son out, we went out to far eastern Kansas, and we were hunting on a real large walk-in hunting area. And as we were driving by that, there was probably a good flock of 15, 20, primarily Jakes that we saw, which are young turkeys.
But they're still male, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And so my son wanted to call them, and I made eye contact with these birds, so I knew there was no way they were going to come in. And they were probably 150, maybe 200 yards off the road.
Jesus.
So I didn't even grab my shotgun because I was just trying to get my son to shut up. And I said, all right, we'll go call these turkeys. They're not going to come in, but we'll go give it a try. So, I parked my truck right in the middle of the road where they could just see it. And we got out. He grabbed his shotgun, and I had my box call and started calling those things. And those little suckers just started sprinting right towards us. I mean, at a dead run.
Go figure, you didn't have your weapon.
I couldn't believe it, and I didn't have my shotgun.
I think we had a tribal truism about that.
So I was like, oh, dang. So we ended up getting those things. They held up about 30 yards out, and my son at the time had a little single-shot 20 gauge with a modified choke, which is not what you want to use for turkey hunting. So he did end up shooting at one. We didn't harvest one, but it did teach me a lesson about being sure to bring my shotgun with me all the time.
Whatever you're prepared for, you will never see, and whatever you're not prepared for, you will see in plentitude.
Yeah, absolutely.
I believe that's how that goes. Now, you talked about the modified choke. I know there's a turkey choke. Is it basically more constricted than a full choke, or?
Yes, it's what's called an extra full choke. So it's designed to take relatively small shots and get a really, really tight pattern. And you want to shoot the head. They call it a jelly head, where you want so many pellets in that head that it's just like jelly when you go pick the bird up.
Oh, that's nice. Are they? I know with geese and with ducks, and we may have talked about it on here. I know we've had the discussion between you and I where we've watched pellets bounce off these animals, and with the turkeys, are they hard to kill? Is the head like extra hard, or is it like a dove where a pellet or 2 pellets is all you need?
Yeah, it's they're not super tough. If you hit them in the head, it usually kills them. Mm-hmm. I've shot quite a few of them with all kinds of different. I've shot them with number 2 steel duck shot before, when one happened to pop out at the wrong time for him.
And the right time for you.
Right. Now ideally I like to use number 5 shot on turkeys, because it's still kind of large, but it's smaller too, so you can get a lot more pellets on the target. And I like heavy shot was my favorite, but that's not good on your wallet.
No, it's not.
Nor is it good on your shoulders.
No.
A 2 ounce, 3.5 inch 2 ounce load of that heavy shot will thump you pretty good.
Well, hopefully you're only having to shoot once. It's not
Right.
like our hunting birds in the air.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things in Kansas, and I didn't know this until we were getting ready for the show that you'd brought up, but jakes are off limits in the spring. I didn't realize that they have to have a beard.
Yeah,
and a jake won't have a beard, right?
Yeah, they will.
Oh, they will?
They will, yeah. Not a very pronounced one, and all that has to happen is it has to be a visible beard.
Okay.
Kind of the reverse of, antlerless deer, where you don't want to, as long as you don't have a visible antler protruding, then they're legal. So with a jake, if you do take a jake, they in the spring they do have to have a visible beard.
I got you. So as long as it's a male, you're okay.
Right.
And that's the only way to tell the difference. All right, that makes more sense. Number 5 shot, that's what we use for pheasant too, right?
Correct.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I guess the only thing you've got to worry about there is whether or not, like at Slate Creek, you have to use non-toxic, so number 5 lead's not going to work, right?
Right, yeah, and I don't use like number 5 lead. It's got to be copper coated also.
Oh, I guess that's true. We use like, I think Prairie Storm is what I usually typically shoot for pheasant. So.
Right, but like at Slate Creek, that's non-toxic only, so you can't use copper coated lead. It still has to be a non-toxic shot.
I think heavy shots considered non-toxic, so
Correct.
you'd be okay there. So, I mean, other than that, we talked about calls. I see some people use decoys. Do you?
I have, but most of the time, if in the fall, they don't really come to a call, or they won't decoy either very easily. Mm-hmm. So the only way I've been able to shoot them is just kind of jump shooting them, or have them walk under your deer stand. Or if you spot them, you can, a lot of times, I've shot them before where you just take off running like hell and shoot whichever one's closest.
That's a mess.
It's effective.
Well, and that was the other thing you had told me. I didn't realize till I was looking up the regulations when we were getting ready. You can actually use dogs in fall, and you said that was just to bust them up.
Yeah, the best way to hunt them in the fall is to bust them up, and then they'll try to come back together. Kind of, very similar to quail. Where you bust up a covey, and then they'll try to come back together, and then you can just hunt the singles. Some of the most effective times that I've hunted those things were one year at Slate Creek. they had some sunflowers planted, and we would walk through the sunflowers just like we were hunting pheasant or quail, and they would get up and run or fly, and you can shoot them out of the air just like a upland bird. But you really need to have a dog with you if you're doing that, because they will, you will knock them down, and then sometimes it doesn't kill them. So you need to have a dog that can catch them.
Right, and they've got some pretty vicious spurs is what they're called, right?
Yeah. That my son, his first one, was able to educate him on that.
Education, huh?
Yeah, he shot it was probably I would say a 21 pound bird, and they have these spurs on their legs to fight with. And they're 3/4 of an inch to an inch long. And my son was a little guy then. He was probably 12. And he shot that bird, and it knocked it down, and they flop around. He was so excited, he just took off running right towards it. And I was yelling at him, no,
don't do that.
So the son reached down to grab that bird that was flopping around, and as soon as he reached for it, that turkey kicked and put that spur right through the web of his hand.
Ah,
so it went clear through his hand. So
your son has had more piercings.
He has.
Than I think anyone should probably have, at least unintentional piercings.
I would agree. Yeah.
Well, and I've got a question for you. We were talking about decoys. I heard a story that they work very well on wives.
Oh yeah, they do.
Before we share this story, we're going to take a quick break and hear from our sponsor. We'll be right back. Hey there, KDT family. I know you hear us talk about the tools that make the outdoors more enjoyable, but we want to take a minute to tell you about the app that makes this podcast happen, Anchor.fm.
And like any tool we carry into the field, Anchor's reliable, versatile, and best of all, easy to use.
If you want to distribute your podcast easily, without the suck, Anchor's got you covered.
Want to make some money off your podcast with every download? Anchor has you covered.
Want to have all the tools to record and edit your podcast at your fingertips? You guessed it. Anchor has you covered so that the only suck you have to embrace is in the outdoors.
So go to Anchor.fm and download the free app today and start your podcasting journey.
All right, guys, as promised, we're back, and I want you to share this story. I know it's probably going to incur the wrath of someone, but it's too funny not to share.
Yeah, probably the wife. And if your marriage is not stable, maybe on the rocks a little bit, I would strongly discourage this. But it is funny. So I have a couple turkey decoys, so I thought it'd be a good idea to set one up in the yard one day. I was actually screwing with my dogs, but and I didn't do this to the wife intentionally, but when she started in with it, I had to go along. So I set this decoy up out in the corner of my garden, and so the wife was in the house, and she came up to the back kitchen window and looked out and could see it. So I came in, and she said, honey, there's a turkey in your garden. I said, no, there's not a turkey in my garden.
Keep in mind, we're in the middle of the city, guys. This is not out in the country.
So I go out and look, and I said, yeah, you're right. Let me get my call. So I went and got my call, and I was like I was playing like I was calling it, and then I was making it answer me back, and I had her going pretty good, and I was just sneaking up on it because she was watching. And then I grab it by the neck and start shaking it. And she says, oh, you son of a bitch. I thought that was real.
Now, is this one of the ones that move in the wind at least?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yeah, it moves around.
Oh, my God. That's funny. So I've got to give you credit because most people, they brag about getting a big tom to decoy in, but getting your wife to decoy in... that takes some talent and some balls. Some balls. I'm not willing to do that at all. So, just kind of to wrap up with turkey, do you think it's a good starter to get someone into hunting? I know like for me, it was Dove. Dove was my very first one. That's one limited equipment.
Mm-hmm.
It's other than it's hot as hell here in Kansas when it's going on. What about turkey? I mean, is this something you need a big investment? We've talked about calls. We talked about weapons. Is there any other equipment they need to worry about?
Well, I mean, there's stuff that makes it easier, just like with everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you'll start off, but there again, I've actually shot turkeys in my work uniform. Just been at the right place at the right time and had them come through and just was able to harvest some. You know, the big toms can be incredibly difficult to hunt, but the jakes can be pretty easy.
So it's a lot like deer in that case.
Right, yes.
The older, more mature bucks are usually the most skittish, and
Right.
if it's not during rut, you're probably not going to see them.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, the cool thing about the turkey is, you know, when they start strutting around, they're in rut too, so their guard's down as well.
They've got one thing on the mind.
Exactly.
And we all know how that is.
Right.
So let's see. I think you had told me like turkey vests, they're a little bit different. They've got an integrated seat because you sit for a long time, don't you?
Right. Yeah, and you have to be able to move. You want to be able to pick up and move. Ideally, you have private ground where you can. They call it putting the turkey to bed. So a turkey will roost at night, and what you do is you drive around and you want to know where those birds are roosting at. So you use a locator call, which is either an owl or a crow or a coyote. And when the turkeys are on roost and you hit that locator call, whatever it might be, the big tom turkeys will gobble back at that call. And that lets you know where that turkey is. So the following morning, you get up, you know, real early and you go set up underneath that tree so that when they come down out of the tree, you'll be set up and ready to call them.
I got you. And that was one of the other weird things. I didn't realize an animal that size could actually get its fat ass up into the trees.
Yeah, the first ones I saw were I was in junior high school, and we were actually bow fishing on the river and had a flock of those things because, you know, just come right over our heads. I could have poked one with an arrow, you know, super easy. Mm-hmm. They were just huge birds, and to come flying right over you, it almost scares you.
Well, God, I can imagine a 32-pound bird flying over my head would scare the shit out of me.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, and there again, when I was a kid, we didn't see very many of them. There were very few of them around, and now they're all over the place.
That's cool. And I think, like at Kingman, I know I've seen the sign several times. We've never obviously been out there hunting, but there's a turkey habitat out there, isn't there?
Yeah. And we've even actually, my son harvested his first turkey out there. I've never personally shot one over there. Mm-hmm. I've shot them at Cheney and Slate Creek, and then out in eastern Kansas. They have a lot of walk-in hunting for turkey out in that area.
Is that more of their preferred habitat, where it's a little rockier, a little more timber, less plains?
Yeah, the eastern turkeys are over there. You know, I've never shot one of the Rio Grande turkeys.
Oh yeah, that's right. We've got a couple different here. What's the big difference, or is there?
They just look different. I mean, as far as, you know, I'm certainly not a biologist, so I couldn't speak to genetically what the difference is. But I do know that we have some hybrid birds just from Fish and Game's restocking programs.
Gotcha. I didn't know if there was like a difference in taste, difference in size. You know, like a mule deer is significantly different than a white-tailed deer, but they're still deer.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and I don't know much about the difference in them. The tails are different. You know, you can see a difference in their, you know, the fan of their tails. They have different colorations. Okay.
So that's one of those where you could, if you got one, then obviously you can try to go get the other one.
Right, yeah.
And then I think, and again, pardon me here because I've never hunted them, most people are, like when you collect one, with deer, you mount the antlers. With turkey, it's the beard and the fan, right?
Correct. And the spurs, a lot of times they'll keep the spurs too.
That's very interesting. Like I said, I'm looking forward to hopefully doing it this year. Hopefully we'll have some good news and maybe even share some turkey recipes. That would be kind of cool.
Right. And hopefully don't do this kind of stories.
There's always don't do this kind of stories. I think that's what most people depend on from us is let's let them try it and figure out what we should never, ever, ever do.
Exactly.
Well, we actually had something pretty cool happen. One of our listeners on this app that we use, Anchor.fm, that's our host, it allows you, the listener, to actually record a question that you can send directly to us, and we can actually use it in a podcast. And one of our listeners took advantage of that, and although it's not turkey related, and I should have had it in the last episode, my apologies, but I'm an idiot and forgot to do this entire deal. I figured we could play it for the listeners here and then maybe answer the question.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Hey guys, love the show. Been a fan since first episode. Never hunted myself, but I like how you guys talk about some things that I don't think non-hunters would think about. But I had a question for you. Talking about gear and rifles specifically, I was wondering what you guys thought about hunting with rifles with pistol calibers. So things like your lever actions, 357 and 44 Magnum and things like that. It seems like, there's a lot of concentration on actual rifle rounds, 308s and 30-06 and stuff like that. But I was kind of wondering what you guys thought about that, hunting with a rifle that uses pistol caliber rounds, and if that's something that would be a bad idea, or if it's not that big of a difference. Of course, taking into account that somebody was competent enough with that round.
Okay, so it sounds to me like his question is, like you and I use rifle cartridges in rifles. I guess that would make sense. Granted, there are rifle cartridges in pistols now, but an interest in pistol calibers in like the older time weapons, the lever action styles.
Sure.
Do you have any experience with that, or?
Not personal experience. I mean, I've fired some of the carbine rounds, and I think they would be very effective, provided that you got correct shot placement. That would be the biggest thing. Definitely they would work. I know that there's probably been, I wouldn't have any statistics, but my suspicion is that there's probably been more deer killed with a 22 long rifle than any other weapon.
And that would be why you don't have any statistics, because
right.
the people doing that are not recording it.
Exactly, and I certainly wouldn't recommend it, but it would certainly work.
Yeah, if you had the need, I imagine it would. But some of the calibers, I believe the listener is referring to is like 44 Magnum, 357 Magnum, 4570. Those are some pretty popular larger calibers, and although at least with the 44 Magnum and the 357 typically are shot out of pistols, they can absolutely be shot out of a lever action. And we pulled up some research real quick, and as you would figure, these rounds do perform better out of a carbine because you've got a longer barrel, you've got more time for the expansion of the gases to take over. But it seems to me, at least from what I read, that especially at long range, you can't deliver the accuracy that you can with a rifle bullet, and you lose a lot of energy. And I don't know if that's because the round has less powder, or is it due to the way the projectile is shaped, or what do you think?
Well, a lot of it's both, I would think. If you've ever gotten into reloading, you'd notice one of the specifications on any round is called the ballistic coefficient. And they measure that based on a 50 caliber round. That was the standard at the time that this was started. So anything 500 would meet that very good standard. And a lot of your pistol rounds are down in the 200 to 300 range, which are it's very, very low, meaning that it doesn't travel through the air for a long period of time very good.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, and you got me in reloading, just like everything else, it seemed like. But the ballistic coefficient had to do with its ability to kind of slice through the air.
Correct.
How much the friction of the air impacted the velocity of the bullet, the drop,
Right.
so to speak, and its ability to buck wind that's coming across from it. And pistol rounds are usually round nose. Mm-hmm. They are designed, at least in my opinion, to deliver maximum energy at very short distances.
Correct.
Typically a pistol is used for self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, a 44 Magnum, especially with a scope on it and a pistol, is quite effective at taking a deer. So in a carbine, it's going to be even more effective. But anything out to 100 yards, out to 100 yards, maybe, probably 50 yards or less, kind of like a muzzleloader, I think. Or would you say it would be better than a muzzleloader?
It depends on the muzzleloader too. I have I have an inline Savage 110 that actually shoots smokeless powder, and that thing is deadly accurate out to 200 yards. With shooting a 45 caliber pistol round, a pistol ball. So, well, at least the firearm is.
I was going to say, I wasn't going to say it. I wasn't going to say it. I know the stories, and our listeners do too. It's accurate. Maybe your accuracy with it is not out to 200 yards.
Exactly.
And I can't talk shit. I missed a deer this year too. So twice, technically, if you think about it. One I never hit, and the other one I shot in the ass with a crossbow bow. So I can't really talk too much shit at this point, to be honest. But I think it would be, to answer your question, Cole, it would definitely be a great brush gun. Mm-hmm. Like, some of these where we go on a hunt to actually push deer out, where you're going to be making snapshots, and it would be quite effective because typically your carbines are lighter, they swing faster, and they fit more naturally. Right. You don't have a scope, which you can put one, but most of them have iron sights or some kind of modification of that therein. So walking out some of these hedgerows, knocking around some of these plum thickets, I think probably wouldn't be bad, like a creek bottom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But sitting up in a stand, I don't know. But I would say, like, for me, 44 Magnum seems to be one of the most revered pistol hunting rounds. Right. Do you have any input on that?
Well, there's a firearm called a Thompson Contender that's a handgun that shoots all different kinds of rifle calibers, for example. And there's a lady in Flagstaff, Arizona that owns a gun shop that's harvested the Big Five with that handgun. The dangerous African, the Big Five dangerous games.
And those are?
Elephant, lion, rhino, hippo, and I want to say like it's another cat, jaguar or something like that. All way too rich for my blood.
Too rich, and with the way I shoot, I would probably be the one that would die in the end of this. But one of the cool things going back to it that I noticed is that with a carbine, the statistics showing just how much the energy increase from a pistol to a carbine was, in some cases, over double what it is out of a pistol. So size does matter, guys. I know we don't want to believe that, or at least some of us don't. But it looks like it matters. So thank you very much, Cole, for the question. And any listener, if you've got a question, something you want us to dive into here on the podcast, feel free, drop us a message, and we'll work it in as quick as we can. Now, was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Not that I can think of.
Well, guys, I guess we'll go ahead and probably wrap up this episode here. I know it's a little bit shorter, but until we actually get out there and hunt turkeys, I'm not going to have any terrible bloodletting stories to tell you. I will say, however, that a quick word of thanks to those of you that are subscribed to the episode and have left us positive reviews. We greatly appreciate it. It helps us so much to get out in front of other people that we want to welcome to the tribe as well. We do have the YouTube channel out, and if all goes well, this is going to be our first recorded one where you actually see our ugly faces, and it may very well be the last one because they may shut us down due to scaring small children. But we do have the Facebook page, Kamikaze Duck Tribe. We have the website, kamikazeduck.com. We respond to messages on both of those, and I'm pretty active on the Facebook page, and hopefully on the YouTube page we're going to start bringing you some of the really funny stuff that audio can only capture so much of the suck that we have to embrace while we're out there. So I guess with that in mind, thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
See you next time. Thanks.